Seahawks fans, welcome back to the 12 Talk podcast with myself and my co-host Mitch. Got it right that time. We are back today with a cornerbacks versus safeties episode. Is it an embarrassment of riches, or are there too many cooks? We're then going to talk about some news, a couple of rumblings, and we've got some thoughts that we'd like to discuss with you. By all means, let us know exactly what you think. But before further ado, let's get into it. One day, I'm just going to forget that music's going and someone's going to see me doing this off camera and just boogieing away. Thanks again for joining in, everyone. We are coming to you on a Friday today because it's been a very busy week for Mitch and I. Before we go any further, if you have tuned in, thank you so much. If you have come back, fantastic. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, tell your friends and all your Seahawks buddies about this show. It really helps us grow. We're on Spotify, YouTube. You can find us on all our socials. It's all down below. I don't need to bore you with all that stuff. And you can also join our Discord. The king of the Discord is here. We have got some fantastic members. It's an ever-growing community. There's some amazing bits that go in there as well. I dabble. I dip in and out, but not too much. But Mitch, how are we doing, sir?
Mate, I'm doing really good. You mentioned the Discord. We're obviously kicking off the invites now for our fantasy for this year, and that's filling up quick. So if there's anyone listening that wants to be in our fantasy for this year, go ahead and follow the link to the Discord and come and have a word with us, and we'll get you a link and get you in as well. I'm really excited for that, and I'm really excited for how this roster is starting to sort of look like it might shake out, and all the way too early roster predictions that are coming out. I
love it.
I mean, it's a good time of year.
With that, talking to our good friend Jonas Meister the other day, and he sent me a fantastic link, which we will be using, and we will post it as well on our socials. And that is that the German Seahawkers have got a roster. Totally forgot that. The background was wrong. It's been a long week, and it's very, very hot. They've got a roster builder on the German Seahawkers website. I think if you go to roster.germanseahawkers.com, you can build your own roster. Mitch and I are going to use that in another episode when we've actually been through all these positional breakdowns. But I had a little go today. It was brilliant. You know, they've got everyone on there. You can pick out how balanced you want the roster to be. That is going to be... And I think we might have a German Seahawker come on just to discuss that with us. Well, yeah, speaking of rosters... You alluded to something to me off air that you were quite intrigued about.
The cap space.
Cap.
Yeah. I think it looks quite intentional. I mean, restructuring Jaron Reed and then doing Draymond Jones as well. That caught a lot of people out. No one saw that really coming, and it's freed up $8.5 million cap space. And we've still got some players that are fighting for a roster spot that have unguaranteed money. There's Rattigan and Darryl Taylor and Mike Jack, players like that. Artie Burns, another one. There's plenty of players that may not make the roster and free up even more. And it does make you wonder what the plan is. Whether maybe they're looking to see if a veteran linebacker doesn't make the boil down from the 90 to the 53, and they want to be able to make a competitive offer. And will it be 2 or 3 players in that 8.5 to 10 million, or will that be one marquee trade? Maybe.
I can't see who. Sorry, just readjusting my hat, readjusting myself as I'm talking, and straightening up the peak. I can't see who they'd want to trade for unless it's someone Mike Mack sees as a massive deficiency. Obviously, we're doing these positional group breakdowns, so as we get into the thick of it, we will probably see there might be a deficiency somewhere. I'll be very honest, I don't think we'll see it in this episode based on how many players there are. You mentioned Artie Burns. There is, obviously, I've got something I want to say about him as well. But shall we get into it? Obviously, we'll leave the speculation about who it could be. That's for people within our Discord, people who are watching and listening. By all means, contact us on any of the socials. And if you want to come on to have a chat about it, let us know. Hit us up. That's what we're here for. So shall we go through what we were going to discuss?
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
As always, we are representing the UK Seahawkers. Fantastic official chapter. You can join for £12 for the year as an annual membership, £20 for a family with up to 4 people at the same address. So it's well worth it. You get some fantastic goodies. You get access to all of our social events. So it's in Glasgow next year. So Mitch and I will be donning our kilts and getting up there. I won't be donning a kilt. I'm lying, because that would just be sacrilegious, and I think I'd get beaten up. Not saying that Scottish people do that. I used to live with a lot. Oh, I'm just going to retract this. If I edited this pod, then that would be cut straight away. Just an example of what you've got for this year. You've got the wristband you get annually. You get a new patch to put either on a jersey or jacket, wherever you want. Your membership card, and this year's an RFD card. And we also have our good friends, the German Seahawkers, who we want to give a shout out to because they're massive supporters. They're always watching. They're in the comments. We're not live tonight, so unfortunately we won't be having any fan interaction, but we will be going forward. You can join them for €15, so £12.68, and got it right this time, $16.06. Mitch reminded me I needed to change the pound to the dollars. You get access to the Seahawkers tailgate. You get 10% discount, which you get with the UK Seahawkers as well. Raffles, competitions, access to the website, which you can translate into English as well. So, German Seahawkers, just another one. Fantastic group of guys as well. All right, so cornerbacks versus safeties. As I said, is it an embarrassment of riches that we have? Or are there too many cooks that spoil the broth on this one? And I apologize if the spelling's wrong. This has been a very busy week and my brain isn't working. So let's go through the perceived depth chart. As with our last pod, I have put them under 1, 2, 3, 4, and I put others there as well because the training squad. There's some may have been cut already that I may have missed a boat on. So Mitch, you can help me out with that. Now, these aren't the definite positions or the depth charts here. There could be some movement depending on training camp. So, shall we start with the top? Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, you've got Reek Woolen there at right cornerback, and I think a lot of people would project it that way. Trey Brown might have a big say in that. I think when we get to training camp proper in a month's time, Trey Brown is going to really demonstrate a very broad skill set for everything Mike Mack wants to do, and less of Reek Woolen's weaknesses from last year, but slightly lower sort of ball hawking skills potentially. Yeah. So I think he might present a very rounded skill set to Mike Mack in a very diverse scheme, and he may well win a starting role, or certainly more snaps than we've seen him have in previous years.
I mean, when I look at this, I see, for me, the outside corners will possibly be Woolen and Brown, because I think Witherspoon is going to be utilised as that army knife, that Swiss army knife. He'll be playing in nickel packages. He'll be a slot corner. They'll move him to the outside. They'll show blitz and then move him out, and vice versa. I'm with you. I think Trey Brown's going to have a lot to say. Yeah. But I also think that Mike Jack might have a lot to say as well.
If he makes the roster, I think he'll be really, really good, because he has been every year for us. Every year, I kind of sit here and think he's been really good this year. Whenever we've needed him, he's looked he's looked like a starting NFL cornerback every time we've needed him to be one. Granted, his ceiling is far lower than a lot of the guys in that room. When you boil that group down to 5 or 6, like we're going to do shortly, I really do think that if you were looking at it from a talent standpoint, he's probably going to be 5th or 6th on that list of 6 players. But when you look at years in the league, snaps at the NFL level, proven body of work, he's consistently made plays and been reliable. He presents a kind of a figure of continuity in that group. He's a very steady Eddie in that group. I don't know if a trade offer was to come in for him, whether he'd make the roster, because there's a cap saving there. It's not a huge drop off to whoever fills in behind him from a talent standpoint, but you would be trading away a bit of experience.
I think this all boils down to, I mean, previously I think Pete Carroll liked to have those veteran cornerbacks in there. Someone who was steady eddies, who could just do what they do and not mess up too badly. And I think Mike Jack did that admirably. I think that's why Artie Burns has stuck around for so long, because he's a veteran presence. He knows how to play cornerback. He's not a world beater, but he's NFL caliber. He's a backup rotational piece. If you're going to look, for my opinion, to have at least one veteran, in inverted commas, presence there, it's between those two. It's between Mike Jack and Burns. And I'll be very honest, I think if a trade came in for Mike Jack, they'd accept it straight away. And then I couldn't see Artie Burns sticking around. I think he'd be a cut candidate, because I think with what Mike MacDonald is trying to do, Coach Mike, I don't think he needs veteran presences. He needs young, moldable talent that will learn this scheme and live and breathe this scheme for the next however long. If it's the 6 years we gave him, if it's 6 years, or anything beyond that. So when he's drafting players like Pritchett and James, he's obviously looked at them and gone, I can work with them within the system. They're intelligent cornerbacks, which they showed at Auburn. They'll be able to play and they'll be able to build into this. They'll work their way in. Witherspoon, we've already said, Swiss Army knife. You can put him anywhere and he will bang people. He's got the interception. He's got the pick 6 last year. Woolen, before I get ahead of myself, because I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here with this, because I know we've all got a lot of thoughts about how this is going to go, and I think the secondary position within, as we all know, within Mike Mack's Coach Mike, I've got to get used to saying it because he hates Mike Mack. Not that he's told me personally, but I've heard. I think the secondary is key to this defense. I think oh, go on.
No, you make your point, because I'm gonna caveat. I'm gonna pivot and go a different way. Just make my point after. Not that I think you're wrong. I just think there's another way to look at it.
Okay. I think we've got Witherspoon nailed on starter. Potential captain in my eyes. But then I think there's another one in the next group of players that we'll be talking about. Woolen will have to show that he's actually mastered the basics of playing a contact sport, emphasis on the contact, because I cannot scream at my screen any more than I did last season. And I think Coach Mike will be doing the same. I think Trey Brown, like I said, it's his to lose. It's a contract year. He will be looking to show out. Without an injury, I think he could be a starter. And then we've got the others, but we'll go into them in a bit more depth shortly. But what were you going to say, Mitch? Go on.
So I actually think that our defense is going to live or die on the amount of pressure we create with the scheme at the line of scrimmage. And when you can drum up this consistent pressure and surprise and shake it up and confuse and do that consistently, what you really need from the back end is a little bit different to when you're not creating pressure. You need to stay sticky with your wide receivers much longer if you're not hurrying that quarterback. If you're hurrying the quarterback, you need ball hawks that are quick and youthful and able to anticipate and react, and that it changes a little bit. I value a veteran slightly less in that scenario. I want twitchy athletes with an eye for the ball in the back end in that scenario. So I see it the opposite way. I think these guys want to be mopping up from the job being done on the defensive line. Just to caveat the way you've approached that. But I do think that if we don't create that defensive pressure consistently, suddenly we do need that back end to be super consistent and reliable. So I'm hedging that. I'm hedging my money that this defensive scheme is going to be outstanding from the D line backwards.
I agree.
And the worry I have about busted coverages and unfamiliarity with the scheme early on can be band-aided heavily by creating consistent pressure.
I think this. I was going to save the pressure bit for our D line chat, but if you're gonna go there, all right.
Well, it's a tidbit, isn't it? It drip feeds people into that episode.
It does. There you go. So stay tuned for that one. I completely agree. I think it's going to be predicated on all the pressure that we're going to create at that line of scrimmage, just trying to sort of hold in the quarterback, stop the run game, try and make that quarterback constantly looking over their shoulder. Where's the pressure coming from? I think what I was talking about with the secondary, I completely agree with what you say. It needs to be sticky. We need some great athletes in the backfield, but I also think that the way Mike Mack is going to be able to shift the secondary around to give the illusion of certain coverages and blitzes, I think that's going to be essential for this. This is where I think you're completely right about the explosive athletes. You're going to need someone who can show to be in coverage, but maybe take a half step back to then just blitz forward. This is where someone in my mind, someone like Tariq Woolen, if he learned to tackle, could be an absolute weapon there. Could you imagine him just blitzing off the edge from corner and then having either Witherspoon shift across onto the outside or one of the safeties come down into that corner? The possibilities are endless. The mind boggles. If there was a draw up your own scheme on Madden, anyone who works for EA, you can take that one. That can be the next game. It would be so complex to try and draw up what you anticipate Coach Mike doing. But then we might see it in this season's Madden. Not like Madden have got his playbook. So
no, but they'll get the Ravens one. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm half expecting. In fact, I had started a career mode with the playbooks switched to try and see what it looked like, and it wasn't brilliant. I'll be honest. I was expecting it to be really exciting, but it wasn't very good. But I'm hoping that it will be adapted for that. But the game always comes out after training camp, doesn't it? It doesn't come out. It comes out before the preseason games, I think, like September sort of time, right?
Yeah. So I think we're going to end up seeing something peculiar but exciting with this defense. I think when we look at this depth, I'll keep throwing up the inverted commas, depth chart. When we look at this, I think you're looking at, you're nailed on, and feel free to correct me on this. If we're going to carry 5, Witherspoon, Woolen, Brown, Pritchett, James. Here 5. In 5, I don't know why I used that. If we're going to go for 6, I think Mike Jack is in with a shout. I don't rate Burns highly enough to keep him on the roster as a veteran. Lance Boykin, And then you've got the training camp bodies in Carlton Johnson and Andrew Whitaker.
Yeah. I think with Kobe Bryant on the safety team, you can afford to carry 5 here because you've got a guy you can bounce around in both rooms. I mean, they're all defensive backs anyway, and Mike Mack's scheme, he put a defensive tackle in a defensive back position at the time, so everyone's got to be everything. But Kobe Bryant will be in both camps, and I think that really does facilitate carrying 5. But then we've drafted 2, and we've got 3 young talents in there as well. So the 5 writes itself, as you say. The big question is, does Artie Burns survive the practice squad? Possibly, possibly not. And does Mike Jack get an offer from a team as a reliable veteran starter on a low cap hit? I think he's a solution to a lot of people for CB3. Because let's face it, Trey Brown is CB3. CB2, as you say, when we're playing with nickel packages, and we've got Witherspoon in there. So Mike Jack is CB3 once there's an injury, I guess. So he is in some way surplus, and that backup role can easily be one of our draftees. So
and this is it. I think if you're going to be Coach Mike, you're going to look at that and say, look, we drafted these 2 cornerbacks for a reason. They're not starters, but if an injury comes, are we going to throw a veteran in there or give these guys the experience they're going to need to progress them more? Because the big thing you hear from everyone is that this group of coaches are fantastic teachers. And I think that's going to be, it's a steep learning curve from coaching a player who's come from the college ranks to the NFL. That's steep anyway. You've got to be an exceptional talent to be a day one starter with 60-70% of the snaps. But I think if it is an injury and they have to come in, knowing that this isn't going to be an instant fix, first season, we're winning everything, you're going to put them in. Why wouldn't you? Why would you draft them and then go, yeah, you can just ride the pine for the season because we've got Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
No? Want to send you walking on the field as an injury cover? No.
They're also DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett are 2 guys that have played in a really good system at a really good level and have got a lot of college starts under their belt. That has to instill some kind of confidence that they can play a considerable amount of snaps for you, in their first year. So that being 5 and 6 on a depth chart is quite a blessing. So to round it all up, and back to your title of this pod, that is for me an embarrassment of riches, confirmed in this room. We've yet to get to safeties, but for me that is an embarrassment of riches. Certainly an embarrassment of riches in terms of talent. If you were to look at it from a proven room of cornerbacks, I'm sure there are 4 or 5 cornerback rooms in the NFL where you look at it and go, my God, that is a talented group of cornerbacks, but they've been in the league for 7-8 years. That's a different kind of cornerback room to what we've got.
Agreed. Yeah, I think so. We're settled on those 5. We think that firmly on the bubble is Mike Jack and Artie Burns. Again, Mike Jack, they won't put him on the practice squad. I think they'll be shopping him now.
Yeah.
Especially when you start looking at sort of what the teams are doing during training camps and, your OTAs or going into full-on training camp. If someone gets desperate and goes, we need a veteran presence here, here's Michael Jackson with the lowest of the low cap hit. Give us a 4th.
Well, not much or any of his money is guaranteed. So we realise quite a lot of money there, and that 8.5 cap space that we've got suddenly becomes more than 10, and then you really are cooking on gas with options for adding it, into some of the thinner rooms on our roster, which we'll get to in later pods.
Yes, agreed. I mean, if you are watching or listening, by all means, leave a comment. Tell us if you think that we're crazy or you completely agree. Also, if you think Mitch's comment about that cap space, if that's going to be used to bring in a cornerback in a trade, to fill out this room with a star veteran presence, let us know. Shall we move on? I'm very conscious as well that we haven't even spoken really about Carlton Johnson or Andrew Whitaker, because who? If anyone who's watching this knows who they are, feel free to let us know. I did have loads of stats for the last pod, but this one I thought, you know what, we don't need it because we kind of know what we're getting. Speaking of knowing what we're getting, the safety room. So here's how it looks at the moment. And again, ignore the 1, 2, 3, 4 because this is going to be an ever-changing beast. And even though people are labelled as strong safety or free safety, I think we all pretty much know that that's not where they're going to stick. So we've got under the strong safety, we've got Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, and Jonathan Sutherland. And free safety, you've got Rayshawn Jenkins, Kayvon Wallace, Jerick Reed II, and Ty Okada. Mitch, opinions. Hit me with your opinions there.
Well, my first thing that strikes me is how confident I am in the starting two, which is a remarkably, so I know we're not doing linebackers here, but it's a very similar situation for me to our linebacker room, where if they stay fit, the starting tandem are very talented. What's behind both sets of starters worries me slightly, and that is where I would be spending the aforementioned cap space. However, keeping it locked into this, what I find fascinating about this room, and the other observation, other than the strength of the starters, is just how diverse and unpredictable you can be putting Kobe Bryant and Kayvon Wallace on the field in some of his defensive packages, because you put Kobe Bryant out there when he was drafted as a corner. He's played a bit of nickel. We've played with him at safety. We've seen him sacking quarterbacks. When you put him on the field, what is he? And the funny thing about the pickup of Kayvon Wallace has been exactly the same description since he entered the league. He's been labelled, and this is going to make people think about Jamal Adams, so I'm really sorry, but he's been referred to as a positionless defensive weapon for a really long time. So fascinating what Kobe Bryant is in this system, what Kayvon Wallace is in this system. And the third observation is that we probably don't need to factor Jerick Reed into the depth chart, because I think with him still recovering from
torn ACL, wasn't it?
Torn ACL. I don't think they'll rush him back because he wasn't relied on as a starter anyway. He was a special teams ace for us when he got injured. There's no need to rush him back. So I think Jerick Reed rides the injured reserve at the beginning of the year, which potentially means Jonathan Sutherland and Ty Okada have got a lot to play for in our preseason. Because you might see some game day squads 2-3 games before Jerick Reed's elevated. If you hit the practice squad after having a good preseason and a good couple of opening games, you could be off that practice squad and into a rotational role at another franchise. So they've got a lot to play for with Jerick Reed's injury situation.
And Jonathan Sutherland has been hyped up ever since he came over to us. Just a pity about his injury. I'd love to see more of him, to be honest. It's on my list of players to watch with college highlights. And I've been told they're a nice watch. College highlights, for me, you look at Kobe Bryant playing the corner across from Sauce Gardner. Obviously, he's an award winner. Like you said, we've moved him. We drafted him as a cornerback, moved him into the nickel, tried him at safety. He's now in a strong safety. I have reservations about Kobe Bryant. I'm quite vocal about them. In his, as you said before, explosive athlete status. I don't think he's got the fast twitch speed. I hope and pray that somehow my words have got out into the Seahawks sphere, and he's gone, oh yeah, maybe I should sign or maybe start working with a sprint coach. Because if that happens, you are looking at a player who is extremely intelligent, a really cerebral player, can diagnose plays. He's solid in the tackle. He can blitz, so he can find gaps. It's what lacks is his coverage ability with speed, which limits him to where you can put him.
Yeah,
and that's my big reservation. You know, if I've said it previously, if you put him in an outside corner, he is going to get burnt by so many of these elite wide receivers who will look at him and go, excellent, that's a go route, and they're past him. You know, you're going to look at, even in playing in the middle, he got beat over the middle on a crossing route, and the wide receiver, I can't remember who it was, just again burnt straight past him. Just left him.
That's where it can't happen. That's where it can't happen in this system, because giving a quarterback a quick release out of his confusion is the kryptonite to this system. Mm-hmm. The bit you mentioned before with the go route and being burnt on a deep route, not a problem, because if the pressure's there, you're happy for that quarterback to be looking at that route and saying, I'm gonna beat Kobe Bryant on, you know, that's a matchup I like. If I can just hold the ball for 3, I'm sacked. Do you know what I mean? You can't hold the ball for 3 seconds. So if you're presenting that to people, to quarterbacks, and they want to take that option, be my guest. See if we don't get to you before you get a chance to throw that ball. So, like you said, the slants are a problem. Giving quick outs are going to relieve pressure and give first downs that you know we don't ideally want to be giving up. So, but saying that area of the field, I expect to be the stomping ground of Devon Witherspoon, who doesn't give you a sniff. So, not too stressed about the middle of the field.
Really excited to see what happens when we play the Dolphins. Because as soon as I mentioned go route, I could just think, all I thought was, had these like nightmarish images of Tyreek Hill against Kobe Bryant and just burning him. And all it would take is Tua to go, oh, it's Reek against the other Reek against Kobe Bryant. I don't care if I've only got 3 seconds in the pocket. I'm just going to launch this upfield and put as much air under it as possible so Tyreek can get under it. But then that's me just looking at the one player, because we then have to look at the surrounding cast and where they're going to be. And when you've got someone like Julian Love, who last season proved his mettle towards the final stretch with being fantastic in coverage, his covering speed to either knock balls out or intercept, I'm quite happy with that. And, you know, if he's going to play, we've labelled them strong and free safeties. I just think that in this system, a safety's a safety. It doesn't matter, you know, what you're labelled. You're going to be playing pretty much the same role, just a ball hawking safety, unless you're asked to blitz. Julian Love, for me, is another shout at defensive captain. He's done it before in New York. He proved that he's a leader of men last season. Sometimes you heard his voice more than you heard Diggs.
Yeah.
And I think
there's been a lot coming out of camp. Yeah, there's been a lot coming out of camp about a lot of the rookies spending a lot of time huddled around Julian Love and really sort of taking them under his wing and sharing knowledge. And he's become a bit of a beacon in that dressing room for for people. He gives a very open door kind of aura for people to sort of approach him and pick his brains. So I'm completely with you on that. I think from the green dot standpoint, he's worn the green dot before and communicated plays, but he's also been a strong locker room presence as well.
I think that's going to be kind of a key in this, because when you look at the linebackers that we have, and we'll get onto them in a different pod, who are you going to trust to wear that green dot, who will be on the field pretty much all the time?
Yeah,
you know, unless something goes catastrophically wrong, you could see Julian Love on there for 85, 80% of the snaps, depending on sort of what packages we want to throw out. And if you're going to give him the green dot, perfect. And then if you're not going to give him the green dot, he's still going to be shouting at people what to do. And you've got Rayshon Jenkins playing next to him as well, who is a fantastically, I can say it again, cerebral player. He can diagnose, he's been a very steady presence. Those two starting spots for me, I actually quite like. Like you said, Love and Jenkins, more than happy with that. I personally see it as a bit of an upgrade from what we had last year, because Diggs just wasn't in it, which really
both players were very badly flawed, weren't they? I mean, that we had in our starting safety room. Sorry if you can hear someone's car alarms going off. I don't know if you can hear that.
It's, you live in the ghetto. It's a tiny village in Worcestershire.
It's literally the Cotswolds. It is not the Cotswold ghetto. No, I completely agree. I mean, Rayshon Jenkins was 13 interceptions in 2 years, right? In the last 2 years. That's mad. He's a very rounded player. He can blitz, he can cover, he can ball hawk. Julian Love. We all remember some interceptions that iced games and covering other people's assignments and tipping balls when he wasn't the player that was even supposed to have that assignment. He picked up someone else's mistake and fixed it. You've got really versatile players there that can do it all. Both have been described as free safeties and strong safeties in the last 3 years, and that tells you everything you need to know about the fit for this system. And as I said before, Kobe Bryant and Kayvon Wallace are also just big mystery boxes. And that in itself is quite exciting, I think. We'll also see a lot of them in pre-season as well. We'll see them taking a lot of snaps. So we're going to get a really good look at what they're being used for. So
when you get into the weeds of this, you someone like Kayvon Wallace, you could quite easily shift him into sort of a pseudo linebacker position in the middle of the field. So it looks like we're playing with more linebackers than we are, who can then move into safety or can go from safety into that linebacker position. Because you look at, he's built like a linebacker, let's face it. He's built like Jamal Adams was. There we go. Mention that name again. And then, you've got the utility that is Kobe Bryant. Jonathan Sutherland, still yet to prove exactly what he can do, but hopefully through training camp he can. We know what Jarrett Reed can do, especially on special teams. I see him very much as a Quandre Diggs-esque player in his prime. I'm not going to chuck out the Earl Thomas comparison, because he doesn't cover the earth like that. Tyre Carter, however, has been getting a bit of buzz through OTAs.
Yeah, he stuck around the squad a long time. He has to be learning lessons and improving. So you have to think that year on year, there is more and more chance of him, starting to see some snaps, making a game day squad from the practice squad, and he's still there.
Yeah, he is. I think so. Are you thinking it's going to be carrying 4 safeties?
Yeah.
Or we'll go for 4, and then Jarrett Reed, when he comes back, there'll be conversations as to if someone gets cut or if he goes straight to practice squad.
Yeah, really interesting that, because he might be safer on the practice squad than many would think, because he's not really played many NFL snaps, and now he's recovering from a serious body-altering injury. There are more question marks on him for the other 31 franchises than there will be for our franchise. We'll know what kind of recovery he's been through, how well that's healed up. The other 31 franchises are in the dark, so they're far less likely to take him off our practice squad. And don't forget, if you take a player off someone's practice squad, they have to stay on your roster. You can't take someone off a practice squad and put them on your own practice squad, because you just have the guys, you just have people bouncing around all the time. You have to commit to that player being on your 53 and being relied upon week in, week out. Someone's recovering from an ACL and they're stashed away on someone's practice squad. You have to think that they're probably not ready to perform this year. So committing a position on your 53 to that player does not make any sense.
Also, just to add to that, from a very small school, it was New Mexico, wasn't he?
He was.
So not a lot of tape out there. If you are going to sign him based on what you've seen in the NFL, it's going to be for special teams. And there's not very many people that you're going to sign to your roster specifically for special teams, because there's enough people in your practice squad and on the rotation that can do that.
And also the tape you've got of Jerick Reed in our special teams was as a gunner doing a role that doesn't exist on kickoffs anymore.
Exactly.
You've only got it for punts, right? So you'd only have gunning for punts. So he feels pretty safe when he returns on the practice squad. And also, you've also got to factor in the whole new group of coaches will have a whole bunch of reads on players and relationships built up based on coaching them day in, day out. Whilst Jerick Reed will have been in the building doing his rehab, they wouldn't have had anywhere near the amount of time sort of settling him into the role they'd be expecting him to play. So putting him on the 53 again, it feels like you'd get to the end of the year before he was ready to really contribute. So sad, because I'm excited to see I was excited to see what he could do this year, but I do think we might be looking at next year for anything meaningful.
Agreed. I think if we just go on a bit of a tangent with the special teams, I've been thinking about this. Obviously, gunners now non-existent, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Does that then bring in the sweeper? So if you think of what a free safety usually does, if you're going to have a special teams defensive unit who now cannot have a gunner, are you going to have someone that you know can play behind that advancing line, who can smash people, is solid in the tackle, but quick enough to go sideline to sideline to catch someone if needs be?
Maybe. I mean, we don't know how people are going to scheme it up, because before, in essence, a gunner was one of a series of players that were getting a real head of steam and looking to pin. Some of the gunners were looking to direct the runner one way, and it was schemed so that one gunner was free to make that hit. Now, you can get a run up, right? But you're 1-to-1 with people who are going to block you. Is it at the 30? I think it's at the 35.
Yeah, somewhere like that. I've to double check.
So essentially, you're going to meet resistance from practice squad tackles and guards and tight ends. People are going to manhandle you and try and sort of skirmish with you. So getting a clean run is going to be difficult. But there will be special teams units and coaches that try and still get gunners a free shot. They'll overload one side, so you've got a bunch of bodies one side ready to pick someone up, and they've got to trundle over to the other side, and in the meantime, the gun is gone. So there could still be a need for those roles, but the tape on performing that role last year is just not going to be comparable for me.
It's an exciting time for special teams. I think I think there's a lot that can be done with them now, rather than just the usual.
Yeah, it's intriguing.
There's now 3 actual teams that can make a difference, as opposed to I'm on punt return, I'm on kick return, I'll let it sail over my head, or I'm going to take a knee in the end zone, or anyone who plays Madden, you know that defensively, if you've got quick enough players, you can pin them back in their 10 or 15 if your kick's good enough. But now with the change, that's not really a possibility, because as soon as someone catches it, they have got essentially an offensive line in front of them. Which, like you said, this is where you're going to have some backup tryhards working on special teams who are going to be look what I can do blocking wise. But then that's what I said. The sweeper, I think the sweeper theory, I'm putting it out there. are happy to discuss it with anyone who knows more about the system. If you're a UFL, XFL, USFL fan, let us know what you thought about it and if it's something that can come in. With that, I think we have managed to get through who we think the starters are going to be, the backups are going to be, and the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to our episode that we'll do with a guest member of the German Seahawkers using their roster builder, go and use it. I will pop the link in the description for this video as well. By all means, get using it. Just put it on Google Chrome, not an ad, just for YouTube that. Use the translate option, put it in English, and it's all in there for you. It's fantastic. You can pick your own 53. I can't speak highly enough of it. And like I said, we will use it on here to show everyone. Is there anything else you would like to discuss, Mitch?
Not really. We're at a point in time where a lot of the rumors that are around are very, very loose. So there's not an awful lot of sort of odds and ends. There was one which was it Carl Lawson from the Jets was suggested as a really good option for us to trade for. Mm-hmm. But no, not really. I don't want to talk too much about really unlikely speculation. Although I would, but I think it's
fine. I mean, to be honest, the amount of rumors flying around that we see all over X, all over Instagram, in our Discord, we could do a whole pod on some of those and whether they've come to fruition or not. I think the next big bit of news is that we are going to be back on the Hawk Zone rundown.
Oh yeah,
with Ryan Saturday. And Bryce. That's it. Well, I think we're recording.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Keep tuned in to our socials, so our X, our Insta, our Facebook. There's stuff coming out on them more frequently now. We will tell you exactly when that's released. And the last episode we did with them, fantastic, great dudes, and we're going to be back on there with them this week. So I will have been at a family barbecue for the day. Luckily, I get to come home early because I'm putting my daughter to bed. However, my lips may be loose though. Not too loose. Loose lips, ships, mate. But plus, it is Saturday, and the weather's going to be nice. So we're going to soak up the rest of our 1 week of summer here in England. I'll be very honest. If it gets hotter than it was today, anyone that's watching can see my face is very shiny. If it gets hotter than it was today, I may have to go onto a pod shirtless. In which case, we will have 0 views. So. I'm joking. I won't.
You'll be on your own with that one. No one needs to see my hairy chest on a pod.
I don't know. Get it out.
Maybe there's an audience.
Yeah. There's an audience for everything. With that, before we witter on too much, thanks everyone for joining in. Again, if you have tuned in, you can find us on everything. Basically, we're pretty much all there. You will see that we have got a lot of stuff coming up. We've got guests. If you want to appear, if you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also message us. If you message us, then we will happily get back to you. And we'll organise something either during the season or, why not, during training camp. Let's get something in the books. We've got more of these coming up. What was the next one we were going to do, Mitch? What we're looking at?
Linebackers and quarterbacks, I think was next, right?
I think it was, sir. I think it was.
And then we were going to do the trenches in the final one, right? As well.
Yes. There we go.
With tight ends as an extension of O-line, I think.
Because they basically are, aren't they? And I mean,
they are in Seattle.
yeah, well, they're going to have to be, aren't they? But yeah, with that, I think the way we finish this usually is with a Go Hawks. You want to join me and Go Hawks?
Go Hawks.
Let's do it. Go Hawks. See you later, everyone.
Peace.